So I just wanted to follow up on that quickly, because this is a lot of what David Gumpper's work group, Broker Advisory, is working with brokers and broker representatives and brokers technology partners, and really finding those pain points that they have. And some of them we find they are RESO items to solve in our traditional work groups. Some of them may be things for policy governance that might be CRMLS, might be NAR, but there are things about data access particularly that so many of our members are looking for, whether our technology folks who work in these work groups have potential solutions as to suggesting better ways that we can work with brokers and their partners to bring those policy answers together, better guidelines, things that MLSs and brokers can agree on in terms of data access. So I think we'll hear more of those conversations going forward, particularly in the broker advisory group. But we want to invite those viewpoints in. If they come from the brokerage community, we want to make sure people can bring that information to us, whether or not it's something we can solve immediately in a traditional work group. We've got opportunities to make sure that we're bringing the right people together on those topics. So thank you for being here. So we want to talk now about our work groups particularly. I hope our chairs are here. Do we have our work group chairs in the room? I can call you up one at a time. I think we've got most of you here. The intent here today is to, let me just pull this over, is to be able to give you a high-level explanation of what these folks are working on. Just quick 5-minute conversations with each of our work group chairs, because most of you probably only interface with, unless you're a work group member, you're interfacing with Data Dictionary and Web API on a certification level. But there's a lot of great work, as you saw from Mark's UPI group, that sometimes goes on in the background, but it's creating a lot of value for the industry. So let me, oh, thanks, Steve. I know we have David Gumpper here. David, do you want to come up and get started for us? So this is a test. Can they do it as close to 5 minutes as possible? And can they do it without saying any sort of heavy technology terminology? I know David can do it. We'll see.
All right, my name's David Gumpper. I'm with, I chair the broker advisory group, and I think Sam kind of put it in perspective just moments ago. What we do as a group is try to get brokers to come together to tell us their stories. Their stories about their pinch points, their problems, the challenges that they have, along with their technology partners, and be able to voice those challenges, get them out in the open. We're not here to solve these problems and issues, but really to collect them, to be able to put them together, and then take allow like the Greg's R&D group, who you'll hear about in a few minutes, and the other work group chairs to say, is there a place where RESO can make a difference? Is there something that came out of this conversation that makes sense for us to get involved in, that we know we can solve this problem? And they'll work on the technical aspect. But this is really, in its primeval form, business use cases. Brokers and our technology companies coming and having a discussion about certain topics that we'll focus on tomorrow afternoon and speak about and see, are there challenges? Are there pinch points? Is there something that we need to do to, help that to keep your deals from falling through? Is there a lack of data? Is there more data needed? What kind of data or what kind of information? It's not even data, it's information sometimes. It's process. So if that's what we can do as a broker advisory work group to come in and provide some of the business insight, that's all the better to make RESO more efficient and effective in solving problems. That's going to not only help us as a brokerage, but our agents, and more importantly, to the consumers. Less than 5 minutes. Any questions? I'm done.
Drop the mic.
Thank you, sir. I guess we'll be as brief as we can, but I'm Greg Moore. I work at RMLS in Portland, Oregon. My day job, I'm the CTO there. I've been working basically in the MLS industry for almost 34 years. So, when I started, we were printing books and had like green screens that people could run hot sheets on. So it's really cool to have been involved in that, evolution of this industry. And as R&D, basically we're the mouth of the funnel. We're here to define those business cases. So, working with David's group, when the brokers have an issue, basically they can pass the issue, and what we try and do is really kind of analyze that, do some background work, and basically type up a true business case document that then, after we do our work, which is usually just some legwork and some recommendations, it moves on to other work groups. I think, in my tenure of about 4 years as R&D chair, we've spun off 3 different work groups that have come out of basically different ideas from users out there. A couple things that, I like to say, we're here to basically listen to your pain, because that's what it is really often, is where isn't the standard doing a good job for you? At the MLS level, at the vendor level, certainly at the broker level. And then, what can the standard do to help solve that problem? I believe we're truly the real estate standards organization. We're not the MLS standards organization. We're not the vendor standards organization. We're here for the industry, end to end. So, we're very lucky to have NAR behind us. RESO works very, very closely with CRMLS. So there are a lot of different avenues once things get decided to get the information out so it can be acted upon, consumed, whatever it happens to be. And as you see, that standard marches on year to year, be it data dictionary or other things that are coming along with the API. So, basically my job is, and feel free to email me. If you got a pen, I can give you, it's Greg, greg.m@rmls.com. Feel free. And, what I'll normally do is when a suggestion comes in, I'll draft that business case and give it right back to that person. So basically to make sure we understand what the problem is. And then we'll go to work on solving it. Often it takes the village. It takes that diversity. It'll take, many of the work groups sometimes to weigh in on these things. So monthly, we all as chairs get together to talk about what we're working on, what we're trying to solve, and for me, what may be coming your way if we're trying to put together, a recommendation that needs to go off to transport or anywhere else. So honestly, that's what I do for RESO. I feel very fortunate to get to do it every day. So any questions, anything? I say feel free. You can smile, you can laugh, but honestly, that's what we do. We gather these problems, and then we really work for that solution for you. Thank you. And here's our problems.
Here's a problem. Hello, everyone. My name is Rick Trevino. I'm with MetroList in Northern California. We were supposed to cater this to brokers. Can you raise your hand if you're a broker? Oh, excellent. There's a couple of you, so I'm right at you here. So, right, no technical speak. So, payloads, what do? We help define, we help do the specification for the different data sets that you're going to use, that you may require, or you're going to ask from an MLS. You're going to ask for information from the MLS, inventory, because you want to develop that new product, right? You got that mobile app we're talking about. You have maybe a website 2.0, 3.0 coming out that's going to have all these great features, but you need to get the data set. Like the gentleman in the back says, yeah, there's standards. We need to get to that data set. And once you do get to that data set and we define it, we want to make it predictable. We wanted to say an IDX payload consists of this. A back office payload looks like this, because we want the developers and truly the brokers to get to market faster, to start monetizing, start taking advantage of the value of those different fields and values, data sets. So I remember when years ago I took my son to school and we were having lunch at the cafeteria, and next to us was a little boy, and he went to go open up his lunch bag or tote. So it's no longer the lunch brown bag as we used to remember, right? He opened up, it was colorful, and they even have characters, and it's different. And what caught me by surprise, it was like a data package, and I thought about it, because when he opened it up, it was modular. There were different compartments in there, right? And so one of the compartments, I think he was really hungry because he went for the main compartment, and that was his sandwich. And it wasn't in the loose bag. It was in the hard plastic, well-defined bag. Plastic. So he starts eating that, and you can think about that in an IDX, maybe as a listings. And the next one he opened up, because he really wanted, was his little snack one was the chips. Right? And there, maybe it's the office information. And you don't get all the types of chips you have. You only use specific types that parents give to the kids. And so those are, in the payload, we only define certain fields you get for that office information. And then he went to the next compartment. Maybe that was the vegetables, right? You don't get all the vegetables, but you do get a set of these vegetables. And maybe that's the member information. Now, when I looked at that, I looked at, wow, I would have went straight for the last compartment, which was the dessert. Right? So that could be your photos. And this was something that the kid knew. It was well organized, and he knew exactly where to go to get his food, well defined. And as much as he was in there eating his food and talking to my son, he really didn't want to be there, right? He knew what he wanted to do, as consume it, eat it, and then he wanted to be where? Outside. He wanted to get outside, do what he had to do there with the meal, and get outside and play with his friends. So the Payloads work group, we're helping define, set the standards of what's the specification for the various payloads, whether it be IDX, which has been done already, or back office, which we're trying to wrap up now, so that whatever product, whatever service you want to get to your agents, to the consumer, that it's easy to ingest, it's clear, it's defined, the developer knows what to do with it, and you can get to the market. And as you start expanding into other markets, the cost is lowered, right? The entry to the barrier. So the data sets, now you can process them. Yeah, there's going to be some engineering, but moving forward, all of that's reduced. Okay? Any questions? No? So now, thank you. All right. And I'm not sure, I'm going to bring up Mark and Ash.
I'm Mark Lesswing, Ashish Antal. We're the co-chairs of the Distributed Ledger Work Group, and I want to talk a little bit about what that is. Okay, so it's a little bit mysterious. So I thought we'd start by talking about what are these things and why they're important. You know what's a good thing, Ash, is that if you look at across our work group, the biggest participation we've had to this point has been from brokers. So it's a great place for brokers to get involved in the standards group. It has a lot to do with that. So I thought I would actually start off a little bit and talk about why that is so, and then we can talk about specifically, how the different groups work in. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, so I got a little concept here. So if you think about your driver's license, you got your driver's license, and everybody's driver's license within the state's exactly the same information. Okay, so therefore, if you put it in there, it's kind of like a database, right? It's like a database. Every row is exactly the same. You can't really add new fields onto the driver's license. But what's interesting, if you look at distributed ledgers and blockchains, they're more like a driving record. So if I had a driving record, don't tell a hotel, by the way. So if you had a driving record, some people have very long records, some have very short records, right? So therefore, distributed ledgers are more like these kind of things than these kind of things. So if you think about distributed ledgers are more like events that happen over time. Some people have a couple events, some have a whole bunch of events. That's why the brokers are so interested in this kind of technology. We've had a big uptick in our group, because if you look at what happened to the life cycle of that listing, is every listing the same, by the way? Is it all the same steps? No, right? They're all different. Therefore, trying to force it into databases is kind of difficult. Therefore, the natural way to model these things is actually in a more flexible format. And that's what this distributed ledger group's all about. But there's different kinds of groups that are involved there, not just the brokers.
So what we're trying to do is focus on different systems that are currently using the event model to track the history or the transactions or their referrals or maybe their onboarding process. So what's going on right now is we're looking into all these events that are produced within these systems. So a referral tracking system could be tracking a referral from beginning to the end. And what they're doing is they're proposing these events that they want to track and log into a ledger and then communicate within different systems so they can then trigger different actions within separate systems. So our goal is to actually come up with a standard. So once a referral tracking system has implemented a set of events, those events can be shared and distributed to other systems for different processes. Some of the examples are within onboarding systems where we want to track the applications and how the onboarding application is progressing through their life cycle. So from beginning to the end until a contract is signed, how much time it took, where the process was improved or where it got stuck. So these are the kind of things that we're looking into, and we're proposing all the events that we could trigger during that system and then let other systems take over and take some actions based on an event that was logged within a different system. So because these systems are provided by different vendors, these applications are running on their own silos, this could be a mechanism for communicating between two different applications and sending some kind of signal that activates another process in different system. We're also looking into how MLSs can expose listing-related events. So when a listing goes from active to sold, that event can be triggered immediately and distributed to another system in a transaction management or a broker backend system.
Yeah, so a lot of it has to do with this whole real-time concept, right? As events happen in real time, that's what we're trying to capture here in the distributed ledger. So if you're looking at anything in the real estate industry, and if you think that timeliness is an important thing to keep on top of things for the business, this kind of technology is where we're actually exploring it. We're 1 minute to go, but let's talk about our work group. How do you get involved? Okay, so get on Confluence, and there's a once a month phone call. Okay, so if you get signed up there, whether you're on the phone call or not, at least you'll get the notifications up there. We try to keep it absolutely under an hour a month, and we do push standards forward. We've got a draft up there right now, and we're with 30 seconds left. I think we're good.
Yes, so our meetings are held Thursdays, so and it's easy to just participate, call in, and if you think about some of the events which are happening within your own systems that you would like to be part of the standards, then just propose it. It's that easy.
Next. Yeah, we had a timer going. We were right on, baby.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Lambrou from MetroList. I chair the Internet Tracking Work Group. So my elevator pitch is just imagine the plethora of real estate products that are in your ecosystem. The ones that either you furnish for yourself or you provide for your agents on a brokerage level. Imagine the expenditures, right? From the IDX technology you invent and create or invest in, from the MLS, from the CMA and showing tools that, fancy that you created a special contract for your firm. Imagine the expenditures that go through your ecosystem, through your budget. How do you measure the effectiveness, right? How do you know that you're spending your money correctly? How do you know that you're syndicating to the right sources? Bless you. A lot of that is through analytics, right? A lot of that is through tracking, and that's kind of the focus of our group. Today, measuring the effectiveness of your digital marketing is a tricky task, and it's very cumbersome. I call it cut and paste. A lot of the players out there measure things differently. Some don't provide analytics altogether, and it's a very difficult task. And that's kind of the goal of our group is to streamline that and make it easier. No matter how big you are, you're never going to force different shops to create analytics the exact same way you want. But through a standard, through RESO, you have the ability to ask them to provide a standard export. One that your team can go ahead and measure the listing activity on syndication sites versus MLS client portals. Understand from the usage stats how many of your agents are actually using those CMA tools that you provide. It's through the standards of this work group that can happen. And that's something that I think that's a pretty profound thing. And I definitely would ask all of you to invest in our work group and participate on any level. I equate today's real estate tech with analytics very simply to my love of baseball, right? Go Cubs in St. Louis, gotta say it. Baseball 10 years ago, there were very few teams, a handful of teams that measured player performance via analytics. In 2019, today, every single team has an analytics department. And in 90% of those teams, it's the #1 player evaluation tool. If you are any type of leadership or in control of any expenditures in real estate technology, you have to take a look at the numbers. You have to see if you are getting that exposure that your client demands today, not something that you feel to keep up with somebody, but this is coming from the clients. And make sure that you're covering the bases, that you're investing in the right areas, and see where you may need some improvement on. So that's kind of the schmeal for internet tracking. You can invest in our work group tomorrow. We meet in the afternoon right behind these curtains, I believe, and offer your participation. And it can be a technical level, it can be a business level, whatever skill set you bring, whatever direction you want to bring to the group, whatever your pain points are. Our goal is to listen to the community and provide a solution. We have a really good spec right now, but it's mainly for server side. We're focusing more on client side and making that task, that task of getting all the real estate activity together into one dashboard to make informative decisions. Our goal is to streamline that process. So the focus is on the research of the data, not on the gathering of the data. And I think that I'm really happy to, the next couple of years or year and a half, however it's going to be, I'm really happy to see that we're going to see some improvement in that area. So that's all I have. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. It's dangerous. Well, I'm so glad I got the afternoon slot after lunch to talk about Data Dictionary. I'm doing this for Rob Larson, who is the chair of the Data Dictionary. So I'm Brian Tepfer. I am the EVP and CTO of Rapatoni. And let's talk in less than 5 minutes, non-technical, about what the Data Dictionary is for and how it benefits you guys. Anybody remember the game Perfection? It was a game board, and you had an electronic timer, and you had 50 oddly shaped pieces that you had to plug in really quickly before the timer exploded and everything went all over the place. That is data without a data dictionary. Every vendor has to map something in specific. There's 600 MLSs, and every MLS could have something different. So if you want a vendor to have a quick time to implement something, they have to map each piece one by one. Data Dictionary allows a standard set of data to be ubiquitous across everything. So now mapping data is just, square peg, square hole, round, peg, round hole. Makes it easy, and again, quick time to implement, which is what I really think every work group working for RESO does, is it's really about how quickly can vendors utilize your data and how quickly they could bring something to market. So I'm going to keep that quick and easy. If you have any questions, ask Rob. He knows a lot more than I do. So anyway, thank you guys.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Bessett. I'm with CRMLS. I'm the UPI Workgroup Chair. And I think everyone's already heard my presentation before, so you've gotten a sneak peek at what we do. I think it's important to think of what the workgroup does as really bringing coherence to otherwise disparate information. So what does that mean, coherence? It means that we can take a property, which is the core of what we think is important in our workgroup. We think that's the center of the universe. We take that piece of information and we can bring in lots of other information. And if you're a data analytics guy, you're thinking, this is great, this is wonderful. If you're a database guy, you're thinking, this is great, this is wonderful. But what does it mean to the people, the brokers in this room, or otherwise that business value? What's that? So imagine you can type in, I think Josh was talking about the cost of things in MLSs, but what about the cost of the person typing in, creating a listing, for example? And I've got a MLS hat on a little bit here, so what's the cost of that? What if I could type something in like an address, I'm getting ready to create a listing, and suddenly I have information available to me. Information pops in, information just magically appears. Things like the green data. I'm creating a listing, I gotta go find that green data? That's not really my thing, right? I'm a broker. But I can get the green data for free. I can get information about the tax information for free. I can get the location, an actual location that's vetted by multiple places, multiple data import places for free. I can get all that auto-populated. It can be auto-populated by an MLS. Maybe it's through some other vendor application and they pull that in for me. I get all these things and it's just all magic. It's kind of what I was referring to before when I say, things just work. That's what we do in the UPI work group. So I encourage more people. We have a lot of diversity in the work group, which is great. I think that's actually the strength of the work group itself, is having diversity, people from mortgage institutions or insurance companies, MLS people. We got lots of MLS people. We have public records people. That's the real value of the UPI. The work group meets on the 4th Wednesday of the month at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I would encourage as many people with that strategic business side of things to come chime in at the work group. We really need your input. We're sort of half techie guys and half business guys. Any more information or that sort of perspective, totally valuable for us. Thank you.
We've got 2 up here, so I think that gives us 10 minutes, doesn't it? I'm pretty sure it does. I'm Paul Stusiak, and this is Steve Ledwith, and we're the co-chairs of Transport, and I would be happy to talk your ears off, but I wrote it down so that I would keep bound. So it's really meant to be the value proposition of what this group does for you, and so from that perspective, you've got the listing contract, it's signed, now what happens? We deal with the providing a standard way to get your data into the MLS that will start the process of you, of you marketing it, and we also do the other side. We describe how to share that data out to market your listings to other members of the MLS and to other authorized channels. For developers, we review and evaluate external standards, augment those standards as necessary, and contribute back to those standards. And finally, to RESO members, we provide a consistent and interoperable standard to send and receive real estate data from our members. Steve has some things that he'd like to add too.
Sure. Thank you. So the other thing to think about for us, for what we do, we've been talking a lot about what type of people do we need to join us in transport. If you're a technical person and you want to talk about how we get the components that are in your lunchbox from one place to another, that's what we do. We deliver that payload that we talked about earlier. How do we get it from A to B? But then how do we do it in a way that you need it? Are you a business person who has a challenge where you can't get data from A to B? Stop by and talk to us. That's what we want to work on. We're working with Distributed Ledger on how do we transfer that data. We've been talking about replication. We're talking about shapes and other things that are super technical, but not all of it. There's a lot of need for the business piece of what does it mean to transport that data via RETs or API, or how do we do updates, and all different things that everybody in here wants, or maybe they know they need it. Stop by, have fun. We have a meeting maybe this afternoon?
Yes.
All right. Stop by, see what that's all about, and come join us. We'd be glad to have you. Thank you.
As someone who's still relatively new to RESO, this was actually really helpful for me, so thanks for doing that, Sam. I'm Chris Moran. I am the chair of the Cross-Platform Interoperability Work Group. I'm also the CTO at MRED, and I've been in at MRED for about a year and a half. Prior to that, I was actually with a large brokerage for about 12 years running their marketing and operations. And I say that because one of my main jobs at that brokerage was working on the product mix, the value proposition for agents. So I'd have a lot of conversations one-on-one with our agents, with our offices, with our teams, and we'd talk about what their problems were that we were trying to solve. And a lot of times what we would ask is, what tool, what system, what product, what can we do to help you? And they would say, we need this, we need that, and you guys are doing a great job of giving us all of this, but I'm getting really tired of logging into each system individually. I'm getting really tired of having to re-download my database and upload it into another system. Can you just find one thing that does it all? Can you just find us an end-to-end system? So that way we're not constantly redoing the same things over and over and over again in our workflow. So before I'd ever even heard of RESO or interoperability, I was working on the interoperability problem. And interoperability, really simply defined, is just making computer systems talk to each other. So being able to take that data, pass it back and forth. So within RESO, I think you can see how interoperability is really important because you've heard a lot of great talks from the different workgroup chairs up here. There's a lot of really interesting pieces and resources being put together. And interoperability, I really see as kind of the glue starting to connect some of those pieces, starting to really come up with the ways that we can use some of those in real-world situations that will help foster innovation, that will eliminate efficiencies, and that will give more choice to agents and brokerages into what systems and partners they work with on a day-to-day basis based on the feel and the design and the service of that product, not necessarily because their data is stuck there, right? So that's how we really look at interoperability. And our work group is relatively new. We just started in January. We've had about 9 meetings this year. We've been focusing on a lot of different use cases. Our first one that we're really dialed in on right now is around transaction management. So a very specific real-life use case that we had at the brokerage I was at and that we're talking about now is I'm working in, for example, DocuSign. The co-op agent's working in .loop. I want to stay working in DocuSign. They want to stay working in .loop. How do we make that transaction happen? So how do we create the standards and the communication between those two systems while obviously letting those two systems still compete and keep their secret sauce? So that's something we're really focusing in on right now. And tomorrow we have our workgroup meeting. We meet every month on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock. And if you're interested in a very nice blend of 90s nostalgia and today's hottest memes, I would encourage you to join us for our workgroup meeting at 11 o'clock to talk about common schema and interoperability. So thanks.